Good morning to you. I'm Danilo Evangelista, and welcome to our tropical weather outlook video for Wednesday, August 27th, 2025. Let's start off by looking at the National Hurricane Center tropical weather outlook. And right now in the Atlantic Basin, we are only tracking Tropical Storm Fernand, which is still a weak tropical storm right now, not affecting anybody. And in fact, this is probably going to die off in the next day or so. Probably by later today, this is going to die off, so won't really have to worry about that. And beyond that, nothing much else happening in the Atlantic right now. But in the Eastern Pacific, it is a very different story. We have three areas of interest, and we have Tropical Storm Juliette, which is also slowly beginning to weaken right now. Strengthened to close to hurricane status yesterday, but now today is beginning to feel the effects of cooler sea surface temperatures and drier air, as is typically the case the further northwest you go in the Pacific. So now it is down to 50 miles per hour, minimum central pressure of 1,001 millibars. And just really quickly looking at the track here, this too is also going to die off by the end of the week and not really be much of any more concern for us tracking wise. But we do have quite a few other areas here. Three areas to talk about besides Juliette in the Pacific. Looks like we're going to have, as I mentioned yesterday, an activity burst coming up here in the Pacific over the next week. And obviously that's very much the case. We have an area here in the Central Pacific. This was a moderate chance yesterday, but it looks like environmental conditions are a little bit less favorable for this to develop. But we have two other areas in the Pacific here. One that is a 50% chance in the next 7 days, and another one which is right now a 30% chance, but I would not be surprised if this slowly increases over the next few days, and looks like we're probably gearing up to get here another 2 or 3 named storms in the next week or so in the Pacific. Let's take a look at the satellite image of how things are looking like right now. You could see Tropical Storm Juliette here closer to the top portion of the imagery. Definitely still producing convection. It's still holding on right now, but as you can see, it is slowly beginning to disintegrate. And the further northwest it goes in the Pacific here, the more it's going to deal with dry air, shear, and cooler sea surface temperatures. So Juliette is pretty much out of time, and it's only going to be on a downtrend from here on out. So not really worrying much about Juliette right now, although there is more to worry about, especially this area here. Quite a bit of convective activity off the southwest coast of Mexico. This is the 50% chance area that the National Hurricane Center has highlighted. Probably going to become an area of investigation or an invest within the next few days. I won't be surprised. And then looking like this will probably be our next area that we need to watch for development in the Pacific. Here's the look at the 850 millibar vorticity map. And you can see overall quite a bit of energy in the Pacific right now. And as I've said, this is because of the MJO that is moving through the Pacific, hence why we are seeing a burst of activity right now. And obviously you can see the very pronounced vorticity signature with Juliette, obviously because it is a pretty pronounced and developed tropical cyclone, although it is on a weakening trend. But you can see here there are other pieces of energy we need to watch that are back to the east. We have this area here. I think this is associated with the moderate chance, and then some other vorticity here that's closer to Central America that's associated with what we'll probably have to watch for whatever develops closer to the coast of Mexico. But quite a bit of energy, quite a bit of activity here in the Pacific, and again, that is because of things becoming more favorable here in the next week. Meanwhile, in the Atlantic, obviously things are not as favorable. We have a suppressive phase of the MJO right now in the Atlantic, hence why there's really not much activity happening for now. Obviously, we have Fernand, which is here in the northern Atlantic, and it's actually had a little bit of a resurrection this morning, because yesterday it was getting absolutely pummeled by shear, and I guess today maybe doing a little bit better, starting to produce a little bit more convection, or at least it was producing a little bit more convection today than it was yesterday. but Fernand is on its way out. Probably not going to see much more strengthening of this. And in fact, let's really quickly go back here to the National Hurricane Center track. In fact, they show this weakening into a non-tropical low by tomorrow. So really not much time here left with Fernand, and then throughout the rest of the tropical Atlantic basin, quite a bit of dry air. You could see definitely the Saharan air layer prominent throughout the eastern Atlantic. Again, atmospheric conditions right now not as favorable. And you do see here we have still some waves that are coming off the coast of Africa and meandering about in the Atlantic, but none of them looking like they will develop, at least for the time being. And I'll show you the 850 millibar vorticity map. Almost forgot that I also have this pulled up for the Atlantic. And you can see definitely not as much energy and pronounced vorticity in the Atlantic. I mean, we do have some areas here, like all of this energy just to the east of the islands. This is probably a tropical wave here. Then we probably have another tropical wave here in the southern Atlantic, the southern MDR, with vorticity here, and then we probably have a tropical wave moving off of Africa, but nothing pronounced right now. But again, as I've said before, that's probably going to change over the next several weeks. Here's a look at the sea surface temperature anomalies. It is steaming hot in the Atlantic right now. Sea surface temperature anomalies throughout the entire MDR, stretching all the way from the coast of Africa to the Caribbean and into the Gulf, at least a degree Celsius above normal for the most part. And there's just a lot of energy in the ocean, in the Atlantic. So do not expect the slumber that we have in the Atlantic to last. And then meanwhile in the Pacific, look at this signature here. This is a pretty familiar signature, right? Cooler sea surface temperature anomalies beginning to emerge along the equatorial Pacific. And we are definitely in a cool neutral pattern. And we also have some warm sea surface temperatures here in the Pacific, but they're very concentrated off the coast of Mexico. So even though we are seeing a burst of activity in the Pacific right now, I could tell you for sure that there's definitely not as much energy to go around and potentially produce for activity in the Pacific as there is in the Atlantic. And I said this before, and I've said this many times over the past week or so. It really is like a bomb is about to explode in the Atlantic. It's waiting for things to take advantage of the activity here. And we are only August 25th. In fact, I think that this might have updated for today. August 26th. We still have a whole peak season to go. And you bet that we're going to see a lot of this energy used here in the Atlantic. It's just looking at how things look like on the sea surface temperature map in the Atlantic, with the warmth especially pronounced here off the northwest coast of Africa. And I've mentioned many times before how this is a huge correlation, especially when you get this kind of warmth here that comes down the Iberian Peninsula and then curves here off the northwest coast of Africa and then seeps in throughout the entire MDR. That's a very classic signature for lots of activity to happen in the Atlantic, and it's a very hallmark signature of an active hurricane season. So it's only a matter of time before things really begin to ramp up here in the Atlantic. And I'll show you why that's probably the case that we're going to have to watch here as we head into the month of September in the Atlantic, even though things for now will be very active in the Pacific. This is really all this is the best way I could really sum up as to why I'm concerned about the Atlantic right now. Here's the sea surface temperature anomalies averaged out throughout the entire MDR. And the latest value is at 0.5 degrees Celsius, almost 0.6 degrees Celsius above normal. And that's quite substantial. We're talking about an average of 0.6 degrees Celsius above normal over 1,000+ miles of an ocean. That's a lot of extra energy in the ocean to be used. And it's been on a pretty significant uptrend since the month of June. And remember, earlier on in the season and even in May, I've said that this was going to happen, that even though things were not as warm back then, if you remember in May and June, everybody was talking about that, oh, the Atlantic is not as warm, especially compared to last year. I said it's going to warm up, especially as we head into the summer, and the African monsoon was going to get more active, and we would see weaker trades in the tropical Atlantic. Things would warm up, and just look at how things have trended since pretty much the second half of June onward now into the last week of August. We've seen quite a significant trend of warming in the Atlantic, and the exact opposite trend in the Pacific. This is the Nino 3.4. Since June and since early July, we saw a brief warming period occur here in the Pacific. Kind of got towards warm neutral here in late June and early July. But look at what the trend has been since then. Exactly the opposite from the Atlantic. We've seen a cooling trend in the Pacific, a warming trend in the Atlantic. You could certainly believe that that is a favorable signal, and it's certainly a signal that we'll have to watch here over the next several weeks as we continue to progress into the peak season of the Atlantic. But I want to go over what's going to happen over the next week with the GFS here on the 6C, and let me really quickly take you through the next week to see what shows up here. And at least not now, there will be much activity that occurs in the Atlantic, but I'm not really sure that I really buy that. I mean, there is this signal here off the East Coast that some people have been talking about, that we might get some sort of hybrid subtropical thing that tries to occur here off the East Coast. But I will actually direct you back to the sea surface temperature anomaly pattern. And, it could happen, but things are definitely not as warm here off the East Coast right now. You can see quite a bit of cooler sea surface temperature anomalies here. And in part that is because of Aaron taking a lot of energy away from what used to be a very, very warm northwestern Atlantic. And I've actually said that a few days ago, that that's what's helped contribute to setting up a much more favorable sea surface temperature pattern across the tropical Atlantic over the last week or so. So there's definitely not as much warm water for, something to, very quickly spin up here and even become subtropical, but it still could happen. And the GFS does seem like it tries to show some sort of low pressure that tries to get going. And it happens from this frontal system that we have here off the East Coast, with a lot of these troughs that are continuously moving off the East Coast and producing quite a bit of cooler than normal temperatures across the entire eastern half of the United States, especially as we head and we close out the month of August. And that's certainly a topic in and of itself. But to whether or not we will actually get tropical activity here off the East Coast, we'll see. If anything, this might actually be a nor'easter. This might be one of the first nor'easters of the fall and winter season here for New England and the Northeast. And obviously that in itself is a nuisance, because, it's pretty much the same thing, honestly, just, not the scientific characteristics of it being tropical, but gusty winds, heavy rain, that's very much of a nuisance, and that's pretty much the same thing as we see in tropical systems. So we'll see what happens here, but not sure if we'll get anything develop off the East Coast. But meanwhile, in the tropical Atlantic, pretty quiet. We have a very strong ridge here, probably quite a bit of dry air, although I really don't buy that we won't have anything that tries to develop here in the Atlantic. And the reason why I say that is this is the map of the tropical hazards from the Climate Prediction Center. And I will say that this is actually surprisingly more accurate than you would think in hinting potential long-range signals for where we might see development and activity in the Atlantic. And this is for week 2 and week 3. So the first 2 weeks of September, we have hashed areas in the MDR both weeks. We even have a hashed area here in the Caribbean and in the Gulf of Mexico and the Western Atlantic in general as we head into the middle of September. So we might need to watch closely to see if that manifests into something. But the biggest thing that I want to point out is both weeks there is a hatched area for potential development in the MDR And this is as we head into the month of September, the peak month of the hurricane season. So you best believe that there will be something that we need to watch as we begin the month of September. And I also talked about on Twitter that there are multiple ensemble members from multiple models, including the Euro and the new Google AI models that were launched this year, and I've not actually used them really much at all so far this year, but maybe we're going to start using them a little bit more now that I think about it. But they are also showing quite a bit of signals, especially with tropical wave that might move off the coast of Africa early next week as we begin the month of September. So bottom line, what I'm trying to say is, and I've been saying this over the last several days, even though things are looking less active in the Atlantic for the short-term future, at least over the next week, do not expect that that will last, especially as we head into the month of September. Things are probably going to get very, very active very quickly. It is just a matter of time. With that being said, I'm going to end it off for today's video. So if you enjoyed what you saw today, I would really, really appreciate if you like, comment, and subscribe, and share this video with family and friends and anybody who might be interested as well. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day. And of course, as always, I'll be back with more tomorrow. See you then.